Chair Danielson, we're now live.
Thank you. Is Mr. Trapp with us? So there he is. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Committee of Adjustment this afternoon. This is a public meeting to consider development proposals that don't comply with the provisions of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. My name is Liz Danielson, and I'm your chair today, as well as your deputy mayor. With us as members, we have Gary Trapp, who is a member of the public, John Rogers, a member of the public, Chris Woods, member of the public, and Julie Shortreed, who's also a member of council. With us as well today are Sean O'Callaghan, our planner, and David Rogers, our CBO. Our planner, Mr. O'Callaghan, will provide a brief overview of the applications that we have before us, after which each applicant and or their agent will have an opportunity to address the committee. Following this, anyone who wishes to speak to an application will be given an opportunity to do so. The committee will then discuss the proposal and be given an opportunity to ask questions respecting the application. The committee will then vote to grant, refuse, or defer any specific proposal. I wonder if I totally forgot to officially call the meeting to order, so my apologies for that. And to the members, is there any disclosure, pecuniary interest, or general nature thereof? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes of October the 29th? Julia Shortreed and Gary Trapp.
Moved by Julia Shortreed, seconded by Gary Trapp. Be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves as circulated the meeting minutes of October 29th, 2021. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's good.
Okay, we don't have any business arising from the minutes, so we'll move on to new business. And our first application is from Zimmerman from the Township of Sherburne. If you could review that file first, please, Sean.
Yes, this property is located at 1074 Nordic Inn Road. The lands are zoned recreational commercial, exception 11, and designated as part of the East Dorset settlement area in the official plan. The property is approximately 2.5 acres in area with 76 meters of frontage on Nordic Inn Road. Surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential, and the lands are currently developed with a dwelling, 3 tourist establishment cottages, and 3 sheds. The owner is proposing to convert the existing dwelling to a tourist establishment cottage unit. The zoning on the property, being recreational commercial exception 11, does note that specifically the following permitted uses would be permitted. One, a single detached dwelling. The only non-residential uses that are permitted are a tourist establishment up to a maximum of 6 cottages, the production and sale of products derived from maple syrup, public uses, and the minimum lot area is 0.08 hectares, and the maximum floor area of the individual cottages is 66 square meters. The applicant's proposing to change the use of the existing 76 square meter dwelling to a tourist establishment cottage unit, and will require the following minor variance. From section 5.3.11.11 of the zoning bylaw, to increase the maximum size of one tourist establishment individual cottage from 66 square meters to 78 square meters, as well as an additional variance from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the interior side yard setback from 10 meters to 6.2 meters for a proposed change in use from a dwelling to a tourist establishment cottage unit. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, and circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands. A letter of support has been received from the adjacent landowner, subject that the subject structure will be encroaching on. No objections have been received, and staff would recommend approval of the proposed minor variance with the following conditions. One, confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed tourist establishment cottage unit is not located closer than 6.2 meters from the interior side lot line prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. And two, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Do any of the members have questions for Sean at this point in time? Mr. Trapp.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, the side yard setback variance request is relating to cabin 3, is that right? On the diagram? Or
Sorry,
which,
I'm just going to pull up the site plan.
yeah, or is it the existing house?
It is the existing house.
Okay, the existing house for the side yard setback. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sean at this point? Okay, I understand that the agent and owner are here and would like to speak to us.
Yes, the agent is here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, committee members, for taking the time to hear this application today. I'm Stephanie Sharp, a planner for Marie Poirier Planning and Associates, located at 44A King William Street in Huntsville, P1H1G3. I'm the authorized agent for Zoe Zimmerman, being the owner of the property located at 1074 Nordic Inn Road in Dorset, also known as Maple Creek Cabins. As noted by Mr. O'Callaghan, the purpose of this application is to seek approval and to recognize the existing dwelling as a tourist establishment cottage, having 78 square meters in area, where the permitted is 66 square meters, requiring a minor variance of 12 square meters. Additionally, the proposal is to recognize the existing setback, which has been confirmed by an OLS to be 6.2 meters. The structure is existing and there are no proposed changes. Notably, the owners of the neighboring property are supportive of the existing dwelling being used as a cottage, and a letter of support has been provided to the municipality in this regard. This application will allow for Zoe, the property owner, to construct a new dwelling on the property as permitted and in compliance with all building and zoning requirements. We concur with planning staff that this application represents good planning and meets the test for minor variance as outlined in the Planning Act. The application is minor in nature, conforms to the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and is in character with the area. I thank Sean for his assistance with this application to date, and I'm happy to answer any questions committee may have at this time.
Do any committee members have any questions of Stephanie? Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I liked your report, very well done, but I did notice that in the report that you had thought that the setback requirements had been met. I'm just assuming that your report is meant to cover this situation of the setback requirement as well as the square footage change. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. We did, after we submitted the application, we had some discussions with Sean and recognized that because we were changing the use, we should also recognize the existing setback as well through this application.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure so all of your rationalizations in the report will apply to the setback as well as to the change in size.
Certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I don't believe that there is anyone else who wishes to speak to this application. So could I have a mover and a seconder for a resolution? Julia Shortreed and seconded by Chris Woods.
Moved by Julia Shortreed, seconded by Chris Woods, be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application HMV 2321 to seek relief from section 5.3.11.11 of the zoning bylaw to increase the maximum size of one tourist establishment cottage from 66 square meters to 78 square meters, and from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 10 meters to 6.2 meters for the proposed change in use from a dwelling to a tourist establishment cottage. Conditional on the following: 1, that confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed tourist establishment cottage unit is not located closer than 6.2 meters from the interior side lot line prior to any clearing, site alteration, or the issuance of a building permit. And 2, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township and or the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's carried.
Your application is approved, or the Zimmerman's application is approved, and I thank you for your report, Stephanie. And of course, you're aware of the appeal period, that no construction should start before that's over. Thanks very much.
Certainly. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next application, which is from Contos for reconstruction on Little Hawk Lake.
This property is located at 2032 Little Hawk Lake Road. The lands are zoned shoreline residential 2 and designated waterfront under the official plan. The lands are approximately 0.7 acres in area with 24.9 meters of frontage on Little Hawk Lake. Surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential as well as recreational commercial. The lands are currently developed with 2 single-family dwellings, 5 sheds, and a deck. The applicants are proposing to demolish the existing dwellings and construct a new single dwelling. The proposed dwelling will be constructed in the same general footprint as one of the existing dwellings and be no closer to the high water mark than that existing dwelling. It is currently set back 24.9 meters to the high water mark. The proposed dwelling will be increasing the setback from the exterior side lot line, as the current dwelling is currently set back 4.17 meters from the lot line, and the proposed dwelling will be 5.5 meters. The width of the lot limits the available building locations for the proposed dwelling that would comply with zoning bylaw requirements. So the following minor variance is being requested, and that is from table 2 of the comprehensive zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the exterior side lot line from 12 meters to 5.5 meters for the purpose of constructing a 1,247.9 square foot dwelling. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands and to the Halls Hawk Lake Property Owners Association. No objections have been received to date, and staff would recommend approval of the proposed minor variance with the following conditions. 1, confirmation being provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 5.5 meters from the exterior side lot line prior to any clearing, site alteration, or the issuance of a building permit. 2, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline.
Are there any questions for Sean about his report at this point in time? Mr. Trapp.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. For clarification, Sean, I believe the application you said is for reduction in the side lot and not the high watermark. And yet I think on the application itself, not in your report, but on the applicant's application, it made mention of a reduction in the high water from 30 meters to 24.9. Was that just a misunderstanding on the part of the application details, or am I reading something wrong there?
Yes, so no variance is required from the high water mark, as they are not getting any closer than that existing dwelling, which is 24.9 meters. So that variance is not necessary.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for Sean? Okay, I believe we have a consultant who wishes to speak to the application, that being TD Consulting. And is the owner here as well?
No, it is just their agent.
Okay,
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tom DeBoer with TD Consulting. I just want to thank you for hearing this application this afternoon. If there's any additional questions or concerns, I'd be more than happy to hear them. This is a bit of a unique project where it has two dwellings, one of which is under quote unquote a development agreement with the municipality because the cabin is partially on the municipal right of way as well as on the private property. This application also proposes to remove that cabin so that process and those additional agreements will be removed at a later date following the demolition of the structures. So if there's any additional questions beyond that, we were more than happy to help you.
do any of the members have questions for Mr. DeBoer? Mr. Rogers first.
Thank you. I just following up on what Gary Trapp had asked. When I look at the site plan that you've got, there's a proposed deck at this stage that's going to be at 20.8. Is that deck still being proposed, or are you going to be asking for a permit on that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I'll have a question of Sean then, just for clarification. Thanks.
Okay, if you want to pose that question now.
So Sean, the proposed deck does come in at 20.8, which is closer than the 24.9. So I'm just wondering whether that is an issue or not.
No, because it's an open deck, it would comply with the zoning bylaw.
Okay. As soon as they want to try to close it in, then it would become an issue. Thank you.
Did I see another hand up? Was that, oh, Mr. Trapp? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, either for Mr. DeBoer or for Sean, I'm not sure. Understanding that there's two dwellings on there now, could somebody just clarify the properties? I believe there's 3 911 numbers there. I noticed there's the number of the application, which is 2032, and then the property right beside it, 2030, and then there was also a 911 number closer to the water, I believe, 2036. Is that all one big parcel, or is there somebody clarify that a little bit?
My understanding is there's only the one 911 number. The one closer to the water, I believe, is identifying the landing just for emergency response purposes. The other one I'm not familiar with, but all our information here suggests this only has one 911 number.
Yeah, okay. That the landing one makes sense. I'm sure there was 3 different numbers there, but I'm not quite sure what's going on. But okay, if it's all one parcel, I guess that's not a concern for the committee.
Are there other questions, Mr. Woods?
Just a clarification again, this is probably to Mr. DeBoer. That, and this kind of relates to what Gary was asking about what appeared to be lot or a fire route 2030 that has that building on it that looks like it's outside the property line. Is that being taken down?
Yes, sir. That currently has resided on the property for a long time. I believe it's either the 40s or 50s vintage. Currently, there is a municipal agreement with the landholder and the municipality as a access for private dwelling on municipal property. So currently what we're proposing is that's going to be removed. Once the demolition permit has been completed, which has been applied for, once that's been removed, we'll close that permit, which will allow our legal advisor to work with the municipality to remove that from title, and therefore the agreement will no longer be required.
And that is all one lot.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
My only question, Mr. DeBoer, is, you know, as you're aware, the municipality is always interested in seeing development as far back from the waterfront as possible. I could not see on the drawings where the septic system was or is, and what would preclude the owners from moving the building back a little bit.
So there's two things at play. Number one, the septic system, and again, this was not provided to committee at this point because it's just recently happened in the last week. The township has actually submitted, so we submitted, and the township has provided us with a septic permit for the property. There is limited space on this property. Number one, we're trying to keep in the general area that's been developed as opposed to clearing the rest of the property to the south. Secondly, there is a large rock outcropping on the property. So where the dwelling is right now is sort of the flat area, which allows us to reconstruct the dwelling in a similar location, but also allow us to put our septic tanks and then the bed, which would be a little bit further to the south. So in part, the terrain is one of the major negative factors of being able to relocate it further away from the water's edge.
So overall, less disruption by its proposed location.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for either Sean or Mr. DeBoer? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder on this application, please? Mr. Woods and Mr. Rogers.
Moved by Chris Woods, seconded by John Rogers, be it resolved the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application HMB 2821 to seek relief from Table 2 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the exterior side lot line from 12 meters to 5.5 meters for the purpose of constructing a 1,247.9 square foot dwelling. Conditional on the following. One, that confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 5.5 meters from the exterior side lot line prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. Two, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And three, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's carried.
Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Okay, our next application is by Bennett on Maple Lake.
This property is located at 2110 North Shore Road. The lands are zoned shoreline residential 1 and designated waterfront under the official plan. The lands are approximately 0.25 acres in area with 30.5 meters of frontage on Maple Lake. Surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential, and the lands are currently developed with a single family dwelling, a sleeping cabin, a shed, and a dock. The applicants are proposing to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a 682 square foot, 2-story dwelling in the same general footprint. It will be no closer to the high water mark than the existing dwelling, and the existing dwelling is currently set back 4 meters from the high water mark. Topographical constraints and existing site infrastructure, including the septic system and driveway, limit the available building location for the proposed dwelling that would comply with the zoning bylaw requirements. Therefore, the following minor variance is being requested, and that is from section 4.10.53 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the high water mark from 15 meters to 4 meters for the purpose of constructing a 682 square foot 2-story dwelling. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands, and to the Maple Beach Cameron Lake Property Owners Association. No objections have been received. One letter of support was received from the neighbor. If you're looking at the water to the right hand side, I believe that's the east or west, the west side, excuse me. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed minor variance with the following conditions. One, confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 4 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing, site alteration, or the issuance of a building permit. 2, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline.
Are there any questions for Sean? Hearing none, I believe that we have the owner here, Mr. Bennett, to speak to the application.
Yes, that's right. We'll bring them in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bennett.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to hear my application today. I just want to provide a brief overview. This single-story dwelling that we purchased here in Maple Lake is 24 feet 4 inches by 25 feet 2 inches in depth. Originally, we had planned to renovate this structure, but upon investigation, it does not have a proper foundation. We have significant rot of structural members, and a lot of the framing, since this was probably built in the 1950s, and we estimate the 1950s because we found a license plate 1953 in the area, it's all undersized and would not meet code. We've also had a contractor in and who's also recommended that we start new. So we're proposing a 24 feet wide by 28 foot deep building, and we picked that size because that's the minimum footprint that the Halberton Forest and Wildlife log homes come in, and we believe that that will fit nicely with the character of the property. Another thing that we've discovered during this application process is the existing building encroaches on our west neighbor. The existing building is only 2.91 meters from the property line, and we propose to correct that with the installation of the new building being 3 meters from that property line. Yeah.
Are there any questions of Mr. Bennett? Mr. Rogers.
Just a quick question. When I did the site inspection, there's a new garage being constructed. That's not yours. That's your neighboring property. Is that
The
correct?
neighbor's property.
That's correct. That's not
Yeah.
our building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Trapp.
Through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bennett, in terms of being able to move or position the building back more towards the road, couldn't tell underneath that snow there, is that where the rock is or septic, or what's preventing you from situating the building a little closer to the road or away from the lake?
The existing, well, the septic tank and pump are 4.3 meters behind the building, and my understanding is you're not to encroach any more than 10 feet from those structures. So those existing structures would prevent me from moving it back further. if through this application process, it's possible to move it closer to the tank, then I would be more than happy to do that. We would like to move it back further, but the topographic features and as well as the existing infrastructure make it difficult to do so.
And that's likely, is that rock underneath where it, where the grade goes up more towards the road? Is that rock or?
No, I believe that's just
Okay.
dirt. Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
since the septic system was put in, we've reinforced the steep grade with lots of trees to try and prevent any further erosion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bennett? Nice to hear that you're putting a log cabin there to replace the existing cabin. My concern is that it's so very close to the water. And I would have had similar questions to Mr. Trapp about what might preclude you from moving it back a bit. It's my hope that you won't have to remove all the vegetation in front of the cottage in order to do the construction. I'm just afraid that you might have to because of it. It's so close.
Well, we hope not to as well, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, that's all we can hope for, is that you'll do your best. And I guess if there are no further questions of Mr. Bennett, we will. Sean, do you have a comment?
Yes, there was one other person that will bring.
Oh,
to see if they had
my
any.
apologies. We do have a Charvetez who wishes to speak to the application, so if we could bring her in. I'm assuming it's a her.
Hello?
Sure, are you there?
Hi, how are you? Okay, hi. Sorry, I was just here to listen and just to let them know we support their application. We're fine with.
Okay, so you just wish to offer your voice of support.
Yeah, we just had a lot of people over the last 2 weekends come on our property, our request to come on our property to come down to look at the waterfront. So that was my reason for attending today. I didn't know if there would be more people, asking more questions. We didn't grant everybody permission to come down and look at the waterfront area, but there was a couple people that were a little sneaky about it. So I just want to make sure everything was okay.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Could I have a mover and a seconder on this application, Mr. Trapp and Ms. Shortreef?
Oh, sorry, I missed who the mover and seconder.
Gary and Julie.
Thank you. Moved by Gary Trapp, second by Julia Shortreef, be it resolved the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application AHMB 2921 to seek relief from section 4.10.53 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the high water mark from 15 meters to 4 meters for the purpose of constructing a 682 square foot 2-story dwelling. Conditional on the following: one, that confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 4 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. Two, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And three, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreef, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's carried.
So your application is approved, Mr. Bennett, and good luck with your construction. I'm sure you're aware that there is an appeal period and no construction can take place prior to that taking place.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Vitez. So our next application is from Wanda Mole on Maple Lake.
This property is located at 2118 North Shore Road. The lands are zoned shoreline residential 1 and designated waterfront under the official plan. The property is approximately 0.22 acres in area with 32.6 meters of frontage on Maple Lake. Surrounding uses are generally shoreline residential, and the lands are currently developed with a single-family dwelling. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new 1,098 square foot dwelling with a 384 square foot attached garage. The proposed dwelling will be constructed in the same general footprint as the existing dwelling and will be no closer to the high water mark than the existing dwelling. The existing dwelling is currently set back 24.7 meters to the high water mark. Topographical constraints and existing site infrastructure, including the septic system and driveway, do limit the available building location of the proposed dwelling and attached garage that would comply with zoning bylaw requirements. Therefore, the following two minor variances are being requested. That is one from section 4.2.8 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 26.24 meters to permit the construction of a 384 square foot attached garage. And from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the rear lot line from 12 meters to 11 meters for the purpose of constructing a 1,098 square foot dwelling. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands, and to the Maple Beach Cameron Lake Property Owners Association. No objections have been received, and staff would recommend approval of the proposed minor variance with the following conditions. One, confirmation being provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 11 meters from the rear lot line prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. Two, confirmation being provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed attached garage is not located closer than 26.24 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing or site alteration of the issuance of a building permit. Three, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And four, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline.
Do any of the committee members have questions for Sean on his report? Hearing none, I believe we have the owner here, Wanda Mole.
Yes, bring her in.
The application.
Wanda, are you there?
Sorry, I'm here. This is all new to me, so I am here.
Well, it would just, if you wish to speak to your application or there's anything you'd like to let us know about the application, this is your opportunity to do so.
No, I think it's pretty clear on the outline of the cover letter that I sent on my reasons why. We just want to downsize because we have a place on Halls Lake, and Sean has been very understanding and helpful as to the process. So I really don't have too much to say. Do you have any questions?
Do any of the members of the committee have questions? Mr. Trapp?
My understanding is, I think the, Madam Chair, the comment was that the walkout structure would not be any closer to the lake than the current building. I guess this is a question for Dawn, perhaps. Looking at a picture of the property, it looks like a walkout would actually be somewhat closer. I don't know how much closer, or not necessarily that would be a problem, but would a walkout not go over that bank or into that bank? Was that the idea? Or are you staying back away from the bank with the new structure?
Is that a question for me? So the walkout to the front, which is a lake?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's it's a 2-story. There's a walkout basement.
Okay.
And it won't be any closer to the lake than the entrance from the sliding glass doors on the 2nd story than the 26 meters.
Okay. Yeah, because oftentimes when I think of a walkout anyways, I think of cutting into a bank and an embankment to accommodate the walkout feature of the structure.
Not at this point. There is a building there that will be taken down, and there will be a walkout basement, but I don't think that will take place.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
If I might ask, is the covered area that's shown on the drawing that's on the deck? Maybe I should ask this question of Sean. The fact that it's covered, is it still considered deck, or is that considered a partially closed in room?
My understanding is the covered area will not be constructed. Is that correct, Wanda?
Yeah, the covered area there's no covered area at the front, which is the lakeside on the drawing. I think you might be confused with the covered area that will be the entrance from the road.
No.
Like the peak on the drawing, there's no covered area on the front. To my understanding. Is that right, Sean?
Yes, so on the site plan attached to the report, there is a covered area that's shown on the deck, on the water side of the building, but that's no longer going to be constructed, so.
So
Okay,
that
as long
building,
as that's clarified in our approval, that's not part of the application.
Yes, that would require an additional variance to reduce the high water mark setback, so that's not included in this decision.
Are there any other questions for Wanda? If I could have a mover and a seconder to.
Sorry. Liz,
My apologies, my apologies. I understand that Charvetez is also wishing to speak to this application.
yes, we'll bring her in. Shar, are you there?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, we support what Wanda's gonna do. That's fine. We're the cottage in the middle between the two that just went through. So just the amount of people that have been walking around asking questions that I cannot answer. I just thought it was more appropriate that I show up today and offer support for both. So yeah, we support.
Yeah, that's, it's unfortunate if you felt that you were, you were troubled, but it is the members' responsibility to do their best to view the property from all angles and understand the application. So we appreciate your comments.
Oh no, I don't think it was members. I just think it was other people in the area that seen the 2 yellow notices. They're not any of you guys. They're a bunch. They're
Okay,
different.
right on. I'm glad to hear that. Right on.
Thank
Okay,
you.
could we have a mover and a seconder to approve this application, please? Julie Shortreed and John Rogers, thank you.
Moved by Julia Shortreed, seconded by John Rogers, be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application HMB 3021 to seek relief from section 4.2.8 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 26.24 meters to permit the construction of a 384 square foot attached garage, as well as from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the rear lot line from 12 meters to 11 meters for the purpose of constructing a 1,098 square foot dwelling. Conditional on the following: 1, that confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed dwelling is not located closer than 11 meters from the rear lot line prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. 2, that confirmation be provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed attached garage is not located any closer than 26.24 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing, site alteration, or the issuance of a building permit. 3, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 4, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's carried.
So your application is approved. I'm sure you understand there's a bit of an appeal period that you've got to wait through before any construction can take place. So good luck with your
Okay.
project.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, our last application of the day is by Kinsman Cottages on Boshkong Lake.
Yes, this property is located at 16243 Highway 35. This property was before the committee previously under application AHMB 00321. This property is developed with several tourist establishment cottage units. And one of the units, when they went to complete the condition of confirming the setback to the water, was discovered it was actually slightly closer than what was approved. So they've reapplied to recognize that revised setback to the water. So that would be from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 12.5 meters. Whereas the previous approval was from 30 meters to 14.9 meters. So it is slightly closer than what was originally approved. However, that being said, staff is still recommending approval of the variance, as the site is quite limited in where they could move this building back. This structure is also replacing 2 structures that were there, so there'll just be 1 structure now. Notice of the application was posted on the property, posted on the township website, and circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands, as well as to the Boshkong Lake Property Owners Association. No objections have been received, and staff are recommending approval of the minor variance with the following conditions. 1 confirmation being provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed accommodation unit is not located closer than 12.5 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing or site alteration or the issuance of a building permit. 2, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township and or the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline.
Do any members of the committee have questions about Sean's report?
Sean, it's Chris. I was under the impression, or I thought I saw a letter of objection that came in just a couple of days ago
We're going to get to that.
for this application. Is that correct?
Yes, my apologies.
That is correct.
Yes.
And the other comment I'd like to make was, when was the application approved before?
The original application I don't have the exact date, but it was the application number was HMB 00321, so it would have been this year.
It was
Earlier.
just a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
I can't recall, Sean, if there were any objections at that time.
No, there were no objections at that time.
Okay. John, did you have a question?
It was the same question, excuse
Okay.
me, as Chris. Yeah, thank you.
Gary?
Yes, Madam Chair. Sean, the request here relates to reduction in the high water setback, nothing to do with the size of the dwelling. The first application we heard today, the Zimmerman one, the application was to increase the maximum size of a rental dwelling. Is there no such limitations on the square footage maximum for this application? And if so, what is it? Or is it because we're converting 2 buildings to tear down into 1? Or could you just clarify that a little bit in terms of the size of a rental building?
Yes, so the first application had a site-specific zoning exception, which limited the size of those tourist establishment units. This property does not have that same exception, so it would only be a lot coverage. Lot coverage would be what limits the size of the building, and it falls within the permitted lot coverage.
Okay, great, thank you.
We have the applicant's agent, Nick Elliott, here, I believe, to speak to this application, and possibly the owner. I'm not sure if he's here or not.
It's just the agent, but yes, we'll bring him in.
Okay. Good afternoon. You're on mute.
Sorry, good afternoon. Yeah, I wasn't aware there was a letter, disputing it. However, I guess my only questions are, we already have the building permit in place. We've met all the other obligations. I was hoping we could move forward as soon as possible with the weather as it is, and that we already have started construction on the other two structures that were previously approved. The location of the structure in question is simply a misunderstanding or a mistake when we originally did the planning. We went from the front of the existing structure towards the road when we should have gone from the back of the existing structure towards the lake. The existing structure has a septic system right behind it, and it would require removal of that septic system as well as some vegetation that's beside the septic system in order to accommodate the current layout. That's the short of it. That's why we're trying to get approval for this variance. We've also accommodated moving the structure away from the side lot line another 1.3 meters in order to save some trees. There's a few large maple trees along the property line that both neighbors and the client would like to keep. Yeah, I guess I could also add that we are still 3.1 meters further back from the high water mark than one of the original structures.
You said you have a building permit for the structure you're applying for?
Yes, well, the permit was approved for the existing location that was surveyed as per the original variance a few months ago.
Can you just provide some clarification on that, Mr. Rogers, please?
Through you, Chair. Yes, they made applications when they did to demolish all the different cabins and to rebuild. At the time when the permit was issued, they were meeting the setbacks from the survey from the original application, but that has since changed because now they want to move the building of it. So the permit is issued. And again, as Nick has just said, the septic system is right behind where they want to build, so they can't move it back any farther. So staff still don't have an issue from the building point of them building, so it's just up to the committee.
Okay, so there's the building permit would be issued subject to whatever decision is made here.
If the committee does not approve it, the building permit would be revoked. If the committee does approve, we would stand with the permit as it is.
I just wanted to get that it's because there's a little bit of confusion in the overlap between the two applications.
Yeah,
is the individual who wrote the letter present today, Sean?
No, they're not.
Would you mind reading the letter out?
It says, "Dear Mr. O'Callahan, it would seem from the file number that this variance should have been put in place, or at least an application made prior to a building permit offered for the projects on this property. Kinsman's Cottages has not been in operation since it was purchased by the Manning's family. We question the necessity of the construction. Other construction projects of this magnitude would need to be constructed on the existing footprint of what existed prior to the tearing down of pre-existing structures, leaving one wall of such structure in place in order to obtain a building permit. Many of the seasonal residents have gone home for the winter, so they will be unaware of this application. There was ample time to apply for the variance prior to this, while they were still at the cottage, while they could see what was going on. Construction has already begun and looks like foundations have already been poured, so the cart is already before the horse. We would hope that even one objection would be sustained. We're not in favor of this minor variance because it's a major variance, not a minor one. If it were 5 or 10 feet, it would be okay, but not 54. Sincerely, Lois Foster and Ruth McBurney.
It sounds to me like there might be some inaccuracies in that information. The one thing that I wondered about was this comment about leaving a wall in place in order to get a permit. What does that mean?
It's a common misconception that that would be considered a renovation versus a rebuild, but that is not correct.
Okay, and you know, as far as I can see, I mean, we're reducing the overall footprint. I know that there's a larger cabin being proposed, but it's further back from the lake. It seems to me that there's no further impact on neighbors by what's being proposed than what was in place. And the fact that there was no business in operation, you know, since the land was purchased doesn't seem relevant to our application. Am I correct in that?
It is a commercially zoned property, and my understanding is it's they still offer rentals and fall within that commercial zoning.
And from what I was told, they did in fact, they do in fact rent them out. It was just once the buildings became so run down and decrepit that they weren't worth renting.
Great.
Yeah.
Do any members of the committee have questions of the agent or Sean at this point? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for a resolution, please? Mr. Rogers and Ms. Shortreed.
Moved by John Rogers, second by Julia Shortreed, be it resolved the Committee of Adjustment hereby approved minor variance application AHMB 3121 to seek relief from table 2 of the zoning bylaw to permit a reduction in the required setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 12.5 meters for the purpose of constructing a 1,092 square foot, 1-story accommodation unit. Conditional on the following: 1, confirmation being provided from an Ontario land surveyor that the proposed accommodation unit is not located closer than 12.5 meters from the high water mark prior to any clearing, site alteration, or the issuance of a building permit. 2, that any on-site sewage system permits and reviews required by the township have been obtained, or excuse me, required by the township and or the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks have been obtained and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, that appropriate construction mitigation measures be implemented, which shall include the erection and maintenance of silt fencing between the proposed building and the shoreline. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yay.
Julia Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay?
Yay.
That's carried.
So the application has been approved. I know that you'd like to get going with construction, but unfortunately on this aspect of your construction, you'll have to wait for 20 days for the appeal period to run through. But otherwise, good luck with your construction. I know it's not the best time of year to be building, but I'm sure you'll do your best.
We're doing our best. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
So that concludes the business of the day. I guess we should determine when you foresee us having our next meeting, Sean.
Yes, I do have a number of applications, so I would suggest the last Friday of January being January 28th.
And how do we deal with the fact if there's any accessibility issues at the end of January? We just do our best?
Yes, we'll have to sort of, I guess, go with the flow.
Okay, Is everybody available for that date?
Yep.
All right, well, I guess, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair, just
Oh,
as a
absolutely.
clarification? Because that letter came in on the last property as an objection, and it appeared that she didn't even know there'd been a previous application. Do you contact them, Sean, and let them know that it's been approved and maybe clarify some of their concerns, or do you just let it go?
No, I do respond, and anyone who comments on the application is also circulated a notice of the decision of the committee. So I'm not sure why they did not receive notice if they did not, in fact. Notices are mailed out and posted on the property. So,
It sounded like this was a surprise to her and came up out of the blue, and yet this had been done several months ago. So that was why I was just wondering.
And the original application was done during the summer season, basically the summer season. So I don't know. I mean, personally, it didn't sound to me like the objections were valid.
I don't think they understood the whole process. It certainly sounded like they didn't understand the process.
But I'm as Sean says, he will respond to them, and they do have an appeal period. So if they wish to appeal, they can do that.
What does that mean to us? If they continue to object, what does the appeal period mean?
Go ahead, Sean.
if they were to appeal the application, it would go to the Ontario Lands Tribunal.
Okay, so not to us specifically.
Well, and we've heard the objections to the greatest extent that we could. And I didn't hear anything that I thought was valid enough of an objection to defer or deny the application.
Myself feeling the same way.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, Sean, just to clarify, the way I read that letter or heard that letter was the person objecting thought that construction had already started, not realizing that construction on the other two buildings on the other side of the property had already been approved. So that's worth clarifying to them, even if I'm repeating what everybody's already said, their understanding of where the process, once they understand that, maybe they won't have an objection. I think they took exception to it. Looked like it was the buildings were already started and the committee hadn't heard the application yet, which is just not accurate.
Any other comments or questions?
Just on that point, Sean, when you send out the decision, is there a notation in the decision that the objections were received, or do you not mention that?
No, it would not be mentioned unless it changed the decision of the committee, is my understanding.
I hate that when I say in another committee I sit on, what we do is we actually note that there was an objection received, and that's all we say is one objection was received, or one objection was received, and you still just, and that's it. You don't try to answer it or anything. You just say that there was one objection, just so in the future, if they do appeal it, it's LPAT would see the fact that we had noted that the objection had been received and we had considered it and still made the decision the way we did.
Well, that would be in the minutes?
In the actual decision. I can send Sean a copy of the decisions. I've become vice chair of the other committee, so I'm currently signing the decisions, and I can send him a copy of one of the ones that we did have an objection on. Just to let you see it. I don't think it's a big concern. It may be something you want to consider.
If you want to send that in to Sean and we can bring it up as a matter for discussion. Sure. I'm not sure what the legal process is associated with making a change, Sean.
No, we can certainly, we can look at, yeah, certainly send it on to me and I can take a
Sure.
look. That's, but
Yeah.
it will be recorded in the minutes, in any respect.
Yes.
So could I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Julia Shortreed and Chris Woods. And the very best of the season to all of you. I hope you have a safe and happy holiday.
And you too.
And to you as well.
Sorry, I'll just read the resolution.
Oh, gosh.
Moved by Julie Shortreed, second by Chris Woods, be it resolved, the Committee of Adjustment hereby adjourned its meeting at 2:04 p.m. John Rogers, yea or nay?
Yes, yay.
Julie Shortreed, yea or nay?
Yay.
Gary Trapp, yea or nay?
Yay.
Chris Woods, yea or nay?
Yay with a Merry Christmas.
And Liz Danielson, yea or nay? Carried.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays,
everyone.
everybody.
You all.
Yep.
See you
Thank
next
you.
year.
Bye.
Bye.